Oh, welcome to the Fireside Chat, Urban Meyer edition. Really excited to have you. It's an interesting concept that I'm trying here. We're playing along and playing around with the Fireside Chat, and I think we're going to be probably doing this about once a week, and I think this will be one of the more interesting ones. So, I asked people to submit to me what their questions are about the Urban Meyer situation. I'm happy to open up for phone calls, which is the first time we're trying that. That'll be interesting, kind of like a different version of spaces. So I'll open that up if people have the appetite for it. We'll see how that goes, and hopefully the system works. So let's get to it. I'm gonna dive right in. We have a number of questions. There was a lot of repetition and what's going on and the sort of line of inquiries. Basically, my rule is here: if you DM'd me, I'm not going to say the name. If you said it publicly, I'll read it off. So let's get to it. Urban Meyer questions, and obviously anything that is blank after this, you don't feel satisfied, we'll fill in the blank for you. So this was to my DMs. Quote, is Urban Meyer to Michigan State just a fun bit, or is this a real thing? I'm having fun with it, but I don't want to get my hopes up for nothing. Hashtag raise the flag. Ton of raise the flag hashtags in these questions, by the way, so appreciate that. Okay, are you ready? Buckle up. Yep, Urban Meyer to Michigan State is a real thing in the ether. It was something I advocated for. I certainly wouldn't take credit for coming up with the idea. I don't think it's all that original or brilliant beyond what anyone can tell. But I brought this up in about mid-September and pitched the idea. Before I had done any digging on it, I didn't have any inside information. No one had reached out to me at the time. And we started this raise the flag thing and doing all the graphics and the edits and the videos and the cuts. And with that, I suspect it was a coincidence, to be clear. I'm not taking credit for it. That's insanely presumptuous. But in the course of that, I started becoming more aware of some actual meat on the bone and some actual genuine interest there, not from the Michigan State side yet, but from the donor side, from the big donor side, like the top couple lines of the Spartan Fund. So that was enough for me to push it harder because it was something I was genuinely advocating for to begin with. And I think it was an obvious thing to pursue, but it was just kind of like an idea. It wasn't anything based on anything. But once I had sort of a foot in the door where I knew there was support for it from people that mattered in East Lansing and in that donor base and in that alumni base, that's when I started to ramp it up more. So people are saying, "Oh, you're torturing the fan base or you're dragging them along." I'll be very transparent with you. The second I realized that there were real power people, not in my corner, because it's me, but in my corner on this topic, it was pedal to the metal. And that's why I've been so strongly advocating for it, because it is such a no-brainer. So yes, this is a real thing, and it has evolved from that original point where I'm just pumping it out. And then I was contacted on a couple occasions by associates and, use your imagination, and told that there was strong support. Now, what I ended up reporting on a Spaces was this donor support. Bernie Fratto, who broke the story of Urban Meyer actually being in East Lansing about a month ago on a Tuesday, later confirmed my reporting, and then Graham Couch in the Lansing State Journal confirmed it again, saying that Manishpia wants Urban Meyer, the donors want him. That's the donors guy. So you don't even have to take my word for it anymore. I was the original one and pushing for it and sharing that fact, but that's multi-sourced publicly by Graham Couch, Bernie Fratto, Jim Comparoni is said to that effect as well. So I'm certainly not alone there. So the donor interest was real. What I didn't know in either direction, what was real or not, was the Urban Meyer interest and his component and the Michigan State component. Bernie Fratto, who has since kind of become a fast friend of mine in the aftermath of his report of Urban Meyer's meeting in East Lansing. But at the time, I didn't know him. I remembered his name, from back in the day in the Detroit market, but I couldn't put a name to the face and all that. But he comes out with his report. What I ended up doing, because everyone said have him on your show, which I ended up doing, but I had to vet him. I'm not going to bring some guy on there unless I know he's a kook, and then you kind of frame it that way. I'm not going to bring some guy on there as this source of knowledge if I have no idea who he is, what he's about, what his background is. I mean, a credible person could be wrong. It's hard to confirm the report short of evidence or a smoking gun, but I had to do some background. And when I talked to 4 of his former colleagues who in different states swore by the guy and said he's not a charlatan. If he says it, he both thinks he has it and has something legitimate. All 4 for 4 swore by the guy. And then some of the reports that they told me to look at, one of them was sending me links to his tweets and stuff. He was nailing stuff on Harbaugh in Minnesota a couple of years ago before anyone else had it. So between the 4 testimonials and the actual evidence that anybody could see that he's nailed reports before, I rolled with it, brought him on. We've become friends since, and he's a great guy. And that, you start to spread this thing and you get more and more confirmation. And there's sourcing now, either mine or I'm 1 degree of separation away where I'm friends with the person with the source. So I wouldn't report like in a formal sense, but I can do it in a fireside chat context. There's 3-way interest. The money people interested. Urban Meyer interested. Michigan State, which was the biggest question to me, even more so than Urban Meyer himself, interested. Now, I get pushback on that. People say, oh, Urban Meyer would never go there, mostly Michigan fans. You would think that Urban Meyer's interest was the most peculiar or surprising. Maybe a little bit. The Michigan State component from the administrative side was the most surprising to me up front and ended up being the least of the 3 on board, at least in some components. And we'll get to that later because I saw it came up as a question. So short answer, putting a bow on it. Yes, this thing is a real discussion. It's not imminent. I think a decision on this is semi-imminent either way. These things can come together fast, but what I do feel confident in saying, and that's what Bernie has reported and I reported at the beginning, they want to wrap this up. They're very consistent up there by the very beginning of December. So I think that's the worst case, whomever the coach is. So that's the realistic timeline for a worst case. The latest we'll find out would be those first few days in December. I would be shocked based on my conversations. And Bernie's talked to 3 people that I haven't even talked to. Between the 2 of us, we have like 5 people up there in and around the situation that have all said that's the timeline for whomever they hire. So I think we're going to land there. Now, it could happen sooner, but that's kind of like we have to have the guy in place by then. So that's the worst case scenario. But the Alan Haller thing I'm going to get to later. I'll just say he's the most confusing element of this probably from the Michigan State side, because I've heard conflicting, but nothing so contradictory that, I'm totally lost. But we'll get to him in a little more detail later. But the important thing is to answer that question. Why am I doing it? Is it real? Is it just a fun thing? Yeah, it is fun to make the edits and put those things together. But I'm not doing it for, just kicks or to drag the audience along. I'm telling you for a fact, I was the first one to talk about it and on the donor side of it, that this is a real thing. It's a real discussion taking place. So whether that means it's going to get across the finish line, different story. But it's a real discussion, and it's a real ongoing discussion. So when I tweeted out that little memento picture when Urban Meyer had, I think it was his second public denial with the little Polaroid, don't believe his lies. That's how I was being a little cute and having fun with you guys. But yeah, Urban Meyer wants to coach again. The reason Michigan State is viable, aside from he has genuine intrigue in a number of factors, and that, I could do half an hour on that and some of the components and those discussions I've had about what he likes about it. That'd be almost too long of a thing to go off on. But one of the things that I think includes Michigan State, aside from the money and the support, you got to look at what job is clearly better than Michigan State. There's some out there in terms of cachet. Now, I might not say that, but I can honestly say, in terms of cachet, most people would say Notre Dame's never going to hire him. They can't afford him anyway. They wouldn't pay him. They wouldn't pay him, even if you give him a discount. That was one of his dream jobs. Urban Meyer wanted to coach USC when Lincoln Riley took the job. They have no interest they had no interest at the time. They have no interest in getting rid of Lincoln Riley. Now they didn't want Urban Meyer. Alabama, that's not happening. Ohio State has been sort of, why he could just go back to Ohio State. I guarantee you he's not going back there. And that's well sourced. I have 2 sources on that down there. Bernie has, I don't want to speak for him, at least one that's not mine. I mean, that's between the 2 of us, at least triple sourced. There was some bad blood there. He still obviously has affection and does the fight song and wears the red tie and shit. But he'll never play ball, even though some of their leadership is turned over, obviously. So that's not going to happen, even if they wanted it to. And my understanding is they wouldn't want him anyway. He's not going to Michigan. He's not going back to Florida. It starts to shrink. Texas is playing well. He's not going there. There's only 5 or 6 schools in the country, irrespective of any of this stuff and the cachet of the job and the brand, who are even going to pay the guy what he wants. So it's a small list. And that's why I laugh. I get Michigan State's down right now, and people say poverty school. Well, 5 seconds ago, Michigan State had the second highest paid coach in the country. Now, maybe it wasn't the best, wisest decision to give that contract, but that by definition is not poverty, right? If you have the second highest paid coach in the country, they did a year and a half ago. And then, it's like quarterbacks in the NFL, they all kind of pass each other. Michigan State is prepared with help from the donors that have been on board from the beginning, is prepared to make Urban Meyer the highest paid coach in the country, exceeding Nick Saban is my understanding. The only conflicting information on that is the extent and, is it one of the sources on it said it was going to be like a match, but a bigger pool for the assistant, something like that. So just to be transparent, there's a little bit of discrepancy on if he'll be standing tall above Saban or he'll just be equal. But either way, they are prepared with help to their donors to make Urban Meyer the highest paid coach in the country, which is big, big money. And you don't need more than your 2 hands and probably only one to count the amount of schools that are even capable or willing to coalesce that amount of money for any coach, let alone someone that is perceived as having baggage, although I think even that is overstated. So that's why Michigan State is viable, among a number of other reasons. There's a lot of things Urban finds intriguing about it. The money's there, the support's there, and what I have found to be the case, the deference is there. And that is something a guy like Urban Meyer, I think, needs and deserves. I think he's earned that deference. I don't think he wants to. Well, I know from these conversations, he doesn't want to be micromanaged. He doesn't want to be doing the kind of kissing baby routine. A lot of people don't realize this. Like Mel Tucker, it's very standard. I believe Nick Saban's the only coach that doesn't have something like this in their contract. You have to make appearances. Ironically, when Mel Tucker went to Florida and had the infamous hotel thing, he was with Brendan Tracy on the phone. He was originally in Florida doing one of these things. I think it was like an agriculture thing. He was in Napa Valley at one point, I heard. So Urban doesn't want to do any of that stuff. Most schools, that's why Saban didn't go to Texas, I was told years ago. They wanted him to do the baby holding shit. Urban just wants to coach football. Michigan State is willing to pay him. Michigan State is willing to defer to him and basically give him the keys to the kingdom. So Michigan State, you can say whatever you want, and of course, I mean, I'm biased. It's a top paid coach in the country, full autonomy and all these resources and support and basically everything you wanted and asked for. It's really a pretty good job to me. And so let's not pretend like Michigan State hasn't been a really good program in the last, 15 years. So that's that. I'm going to move on. So this is next question from Hank Steeler. Various people that have sources or people in the know keep changing their percent confidence that Urban Meyer will be coaching at MSU. What's your take? Again, it's Hank Steeler on Twitter. Okay, Hank. I can relate, and I understand. I don't know who you're referring to, and I don't think it really even matters because their path makes sense because there's people really close to this that are, just outside of the negotiation, like close associates with people that are in these conversations, that their number keeps changing. And my numbers, it's kind of a moving target too. And it's a sort of an averaging of the people I'm talking to. So I don't think it's a sign of wishy-washiness on any source's part or any insider's part. Now, it doesn't mean they're legitimate either. I have no idea who we're even talking about. Most of the stuff, like the insider stuff I've read, has been dubious to me, either flatly denied by people that actually know, or they don't know anything about it and they probably would. But, I'm not going to go case by case with every rumor, but the reason for that sort of upflow and up and down and, changing of, is it 30% likely, 40% likely, 70% likely, is because that's how the negotiation has been going. And their honest opinions of the tides have changed. My opinion of the tide has changed. Now, I have been steady above 20%. The entire time, like from the moment I was informed that this was a real thing. So I've been steadily, on some degree level, confident. But the fact is, the negotiation is ongoing, and it's definitely not contentious. It's not contentious, but it's, there's questions there, and there's, hoops to jump through, and it's tracking to be, if it happens, that's an if it happens, it's a landmark contract. Let's face it, not just a salary amount, but I don't know the nature of all the demands, but it's going to be, I think it's a reasonable demand. He hasn't asked for anything weird that it's, what you would expect in terms of, support, and the expectations of him, and the, assistant pool is obviously a big one. And the salaries, of course, paramount. So, if you asked me 2 days ago, I'd give you a different answer than now. I'm 60%. I'm 60% that Urban Meyer will be the next coach at Michigan State. And I'm 100% sure that if Urban Meyer really wants to be here, there's a way to get that done. The Michigan State side has coalesced to a degree necessary to get it done. So, I see on Twitter a lot, oh, you're the one that said he's coming to Michigan State. Had an idea for it to happen, have pushed for it to happen as it developed, reported that donors wanted him, later reported by 4 other sources, including Graham Couch. So I think it's a no-brainer. And I know it's a real thing now, and I've reported that. So take that to the bank. This is a real discussion and a real thing that's taking place. Whether it actually happens, I'd never said, oh, next coach, book it. Because I don't know that. And if I knew that, I probably wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be off on an island drinking a Mai Tai celebrating. I probably wouldn't even be here. So I don't know that. But what I do know is it's a real thing. And in the last week and a half or so, give or take a day, this conversation has picked back up and continues to go on. And I think I was told the ball is in Urban Meyer's court now. And some form of offer was made, or discussion of an offer, framework of an offer, and undecided, but not a no. So the reason I'm at 60 is I just think there's enough there on the school side. I know there is, to get it done within reason. The question is, what if Urban comes back and asks for even more? Does the Max Scherzer to Mike Ilitch thing of, here's what I initially said, you said yes, and well, actually I need this, that. Does Michigan State retain that, patience and persistence to go forward? I don't know. I guess it would depend on the nature of what Urban's response was. But I do know that they have made a real play for him, and it was not a no. And this has been an ongoing thing. So this thing's real. And I'm at 60%, which, you math geniuses, that's above 50. I think it's more likely than not Urban Meyer's the next coach here, which is just crazy. But I would not say that if I didn't believe it. You could ask me tomorrow, I might be down to 40 and then up to 70. Right now, with where it's at, my last conversation was about 3:00 today, so about 3 hours ago, for those not watching live. I think, it wouldn't be lower than 60. It's 60, 65. Better than half, but not overwhelmingly great. It's going to come down to Urban. That's what it seems like to me. But anyone saying, oh, why would Urban go there? Urban was in East Lansing. Anyone denying that? I don't believe. Now, did I see him? No. Have I talked to a multitude of people after Bernie's report? And Bernie gets full credit. I'm not taking any credit. That's him. I found out about it because of him, just like you guys did. But after that conversations, I was told he was there too. So, and I believe Bernie, even if I didn't have that confirmation, he was there. They've had ongoing discussions. You may think it's dumb. I don't really care. It doesn't matter what you think, because you're not paying. You're not buying that dinner. So who cares? I don't really care. I don't think it's relevant. There's legitimate mutual interest there. And if it was just a leverage thing, or trying to get a raise from Fox or whatever, wouldn't be dragging on this long. And it's apples to oranges. I mean, the numbers, double, not quite double, but in that ballpark of what do you make as a broadcaster. Doesn't even make sense. All right, moving on. Yeah, okay. I'll give you the shout out Woodshed. I mean, you asked what are the chances Urbans are coached by Thanksgiving. Um, yeah, I kind of already touched on that. The timeline is the timeline. Thanksgiving is end of November ish. So yeah, about 60%. I don't think it would. I think if it's Urban, I'd be really surprised if we don't know a lot sooner. Surprised, not a guarantee. Based on the conversations, they've just been talking too much and for too long for it to drag on that long. At that point, you feel like shit or get off the pot. Like they're almost sick of each other if they if you haven't closed the deal by then. It's kind of like, what are we doing here? So I'd be shocked if it took that long if it's Urban. Again, the coaching search sort of self-imposed goal deadline is that first week in December at the latest. I don't think if it's Urban, it'll be on that timeline. I think it'll be a lot sooner. Somebody asked me today, how soon, like, let's say it does happen. How soon do you think it'll happen? Could be within a week. That's what I was told because I had the same question. I was told the goal with Urban would be to wrap this week. Doesn't mean it's a hard deadline. That was the goal on the Michigan State side. So we'll see, but I don't think you're going to be dragging in another, over a month. I'd be surprised. In terms of the second part of his question, again, this was the Woodshed 517. He's asking, what are the obstacles? I got to be careful because this what I've said is, I've heard from at least one source that said it's okay to talk about this stuff, and some stuff I got to like remember what promises were made. There's a family component with Urban, somewhat similar, but for a different reason that we saw with Luke Fickell. And you can read between the lines on that. Again, different reason. There's no anti-Michigan State thing like there was in the case of the Fickell situation, but a similar obstacle. And it's not about Michigan State at all. It's just about being a coach again and what that entails. Not a hard no, not the whole thing's going to be ruined, nothing like that, from what I'm told, but something to navigate, and that would, in theory, it seems, lower the percentage a little bit. So read between the lines there. So I would argue that was the biggest obstacle. And if you had asked me 3 days ago, I would have said Alan Hauer, but I don't think so anymore. So I'm going to get to the next comment from SAR, bunch of numbers. Can you please comment on the rumors of him being with Ishbia for a second time? Love your show and Twitter account. SAR, bunch of numbers. Okay, well, thanks, SAR. I can't comment intelligently on that because I don't know. I'll be honest. I sent one text about the Ishbia thing, about the second visit thing, and that person didn't know, and I just kind of like let it go. I didn't really care that much. And the reason I don't care is I don't think it's particularly relevant. I already know Michigan State is in these negotiations with Urban Meyer. I was the first one to report that Matt Ishbia wants him, later confirmed by Fratto and Graham Couch and Jim Combaroni. So I didn't really even feel the need to check on it. I don't know that it's necessarily relevant. I guess it's an interesting tidbit if they had a secret clandestine meeting. It's certainly possible. The one person I asked didn't know, and I didn't care enough to hunt it down. I don't think it's a critical component. It's just we already know Ishbia is on board. We already know they're in negotiations, and we'll see. Maybe they bring in Ishbia again at the finish line if there's any snags. But Ishbia wants him, and again, Graham Couch, Imprint, and the LSJ said the same thing. So let's see. Next one. So this was a DM, so I'm not going to say the name. Does the scandal at Michigan increase the chances of Urban Meyer to Michigan State? Well, I will say the scandal at Michigan's University of Michigan broke after. So I don't know. I mean, it's certainly not like what brought him to the table. It's just not. I mean, this thing was already going on. So whether it moves the needle a little bit, I don't know. My opinion is Harbaugh's gone. So even scandal or not, could there be a little blood in the water there for him? Yeah, I could see that being an incentive. I don't think it's a critical piece of the puzzle here. So I don't get the no audio thing. I don't know why you guys are getting that message. So I'll keep messing with it. And we'll try to get that better. So can you guys hear me okay? Is that better? I'm going to pull up the next question. Okay. All right. This is okay. This is a DM. Do you think Urban could still recruit at a high level? Yeah. Yeah. 100%. There's no question. There's no question. It's going to be, you never say it's easy. It's a dogfight out there. It's harder than ever, I would argue. The thing when you hire Urban Meyer immediately gets you into every single living room that you want to be in without any legwork. It's just him. And that's the residence of Urban Meyer. That's one of many values with Urban Meyer is the strength of his name and the brand and the cachet that he has. So before he makes a single phone call, before he engages in any way with any recruit or their families, he's got such an edge. And that's something I would have guessed anyway. But any conversation with current players, I talked to a recruit that is not a commit yet that reached out to me asking about this. As not a major guy. I think he's a 3-star. I hate the recruiting stuff, but he's a 3-star. Kid lives in Ohio. He's asking me about the Urban Meyer thing, and that's like a source of intrigue for that kid. Not just one random kid that messaged me. It's not a scientific poll, but everything with that guy, there's no question he's going to be able to recruit at a high level. None, especially with the resources in place if this contract gets done. So, yeah. To answer again, it's a private message, so I don't know if that person wanted to be read. Okay. Yeah, this was a DM too. Hey, Justin, thank you for doing this. You previously mentioned that Alan Haller did not seem in favor of Urban Meyer. Has that changed, or will he go along if Urban really wants the job? # raise the flag. Urban Meyer's not going to be derailed by Alan Haller. I mentioned at the top, Alan Haller is one of the more interesting components of this. I was told by a couple sources, and I believe Bernie's heard a lot of the same stuff, that he wasn't too keen on it. I didn't love the idea. It was all kind of phrases like that. I've never once heard that he put his foot down or said, I'm not doing that, or we're not doing that. Obviously, I would assume he's been relatively involved in these discussions. That seems kind of self-evident. So I feel confident in saying from the sourcing and the multitude of it and the fact that it's, backed up by Bernie, who I believe is, based on the description, talking to a completely different person. I believe that there's meat on that bone of Alan Howard didn't love the idea. He's not going to stand in the way is what I'm told. So the Michigan State side of this is in place right now. So I think that's key. And again, I said it earlier, the caveat is, Urban comes back and starts asking for more than the original kind of general. There's no contract unless it's happened in the last couple hours. But if Urban comes back and asks for more, then, that'll be something they have to reassess. But they coalesced enough to get it into his court, as we said, at least as of 3:00 today. So it's not getting enough in the way to stop that. So, that's sort of the Howard take. And I was critical, not really. I mean, I was speculatively critical during the Michigan game on Twitter, but I couched it with if. I said, if Alan Haller is intending to stand in the way of this, I think he has to own every single loss that ever happens in his tenure, because Urban Meyer doesn't lose much. And if you want to hire somebody other than that guy when he's interested and the donors are ready to pay for it, or the difference that you'd be paying him and Elko, it's insane. I mean, good luck. You better find somebody that's going to go 10-2 or better. I mean, maybe I'll give you year one, but by year two, because that's who you're turning down. So I think that would be, just on a strategic self-preservation standpoint, a questionable Machiavellian play for Alan Haller. And, you'd like to think anybody would serve the best interest of the institution. And I believe Alan would try. And, he might genuinely think that's not Urban Meyer, although I would disagree. But we're all human. And, man, you want to bet against Urban Meyer in favor of somebody else? You can't go. I mean, that's the thing. Michigan State could get a really good coach. Elko would say, Duke's Elko. Really good coach, I think. He's a good, sharp guy, good leader of men, all the cliches you like, right? He's a good guy to bank on as a program builder, maybe, among that sort of maybe pile. He could be all those things, go 8-4 every year here. And that'd be him doing a good job. It's hard. It's going to get even harder in the conference. But if they hire somebody other than Urban Meyer, when Urban Meyer is a possibility, if they just, push a little bit more, that's 8-4 would be an atrocity compared to what Urban Meyer's done his whole career. Urban Meyer coached just shy of, in terms, minus the pauses, 2 decades. 17 seasons? His worst year, he won 8 games. His worst. Last year in Florida and one of the years in Bowling Green. He bottomed out at 8. Urban Meyer doesn't know what 7 wins even looks like. Forget a losing season or 6-6. So it's ridiculous because if you're going against the Urban Meyer thing, when you're not paying for it anyway, the donors are who want him. If you're going against that, you're basically banking that you're going to hire a guy who's going to do much better than I think would still be a good job. 8 wins, 9 wins. Urban Meyer doesn't do that. That's the worst it gets with Urban Meyer's 8 wins. So you want to bank on finding some guy that's going to come here in a brutal conference starting next year and win 10, 11 games starting in year 2 and in perpetuity? Good luck. How many people can even do that at Michigan State? Like in the whole country, like 3? Good luck finding the 4th guy that we don't know yet. I just think it's a foolish thing. So we did receive other questions. A lot of them are kind of redundant and somewhat, that's the thing about the manifesto. A lot of these are redundant and I think kind of already been covered. So I think I'll leave it there. If anybody wants to call, and I'll throw this little thing. Honestly, I'd be psyched if someone called just so I could test the fucking thing. Hold on. We're playing around with this. This is fun. I feel like I'm Howard Stern in 1996 or something. All right. So I threw the number up there. It's 248-923-5996. And I'll try to patch in if you do have any questions. Obviously the comments and stuff are open too. I'll try to tackle them. But I think the important thing is to just realize that this is a real thing. Michigan State has coalesced in a way that even I was, we'll see. All right, we got our first one here. Let's see. Let's dance here. All right, what's going on?
Hi, is this for the Spiro show?
Yeah, off to a good start. What's up?
Hey, just a quick question. I didn't get a chance to send it via direct message, but what about the trustees and given all the dysfunction there? How's that gonna?
It's funny that I had the same question and have had the same question because I was told there was at least one trustee for sure that didn't like the idea. Oh, are we really doing this? Again, not a threat of being obstinate, but, kind of naysaying it. But I was told that they won't be a problem, that they won't stand in the way, which I trust the source. So I'm going to roll with it because they know more than me. I just, when are they not standing in the way?
Well, that's what I mean. Look, I've been, I graduated from Michigan State quite a while ago, so I've been around the university back in the Perlis days.
Oh man,
that whole fiasco with the board and the president and all that. So it never ceases to amaze me. I'm just surprised that they haven't run Tom Izzo out somehow, given how dysfunction they are.
Yeah, ESPN tried. Yeah, I agree. I'm banking on my person up there who, didn't stop them from making an offer. So we all know they have to rubber stamp it at the end. But there hasn't been that kind of disruption that we saw when they were on the verge of hiring Fickle and the board's jumping in and saying, hey, what about Sala? What about Mel Tucker? And, one of the arguments was they just wanted minority candidates interviewed in general. And, so there's some bickering there. It's funny. You're saying that the Perlis stuff, which is, I'm a little too young for that, but I'm well familiar with it just from, the history of it. That's about as ugly as it got with the board of trustees, but we might be getting close with what's going on.
Yeah. The problem with this issue is that it has to also deal with all of the Nassar stuff, right?
Right. And
apparently, at least what the headlines are. I try to not use too many of it because it's depressing, but
Yeah.
So I don't know where that goes. And now there's actually, quite honestly, I wish they would do it. Is they should just be appointed, just like all the other schools. There's only 3 schools in Michigan that the board or the regents are elected. It's Wayne State, Michigan, and Michigan State.
Yeah, those discussions are actually taking place. I know that was in the news today about Gretchen Whitmer got that on the floor, and so yeah, we'll see. I'm certainly in favor of anything different than what it's been before, because at this point, what apple cart are we upsetting? It's been a disaster my entire life, and probably before it, from the sounds of it. So yeah, this is about as. I mean, I don't think we're quite at the worst point ever. I think the Perla stuff was pretty. There's a lot of animosity there, from what I understand. But we're barreling towards it. I mean, we got dueling statements, and the only reason I'm even going into this in any depth in the answer is, it's a relevant, important question, because this board, this entity, has a history of intervening, and this board now it's the turnover has been significant, but the entity is the reason Luke Fickell's not here right now. So it's hard. That's a fair question. I'm even skeptical, even though I trust the source on it, because the source it's not some message board guy. It's a state person that knows. I can't even believe it, but I'm told they won't be in the way. So take that for what it's worth. Certainly not enough that they're not talking some serious turkey with this guy and trying to get this across the finish line.
Hey, one last thing for whoever's listening too. The Washington Post just broke that the reason the scandal is uncovered at Michigan is that they did a search of a computer on Michigan State for some, I don't know what firm, or if it's related to the Matt Weiss thing, but they found a bunch of evidence when they did the searches of the computers.
They're innocent, man. I'll take that to the bank. They didn't do nothing wrong, man. That's
I'm just, and again, I haven't gotten to the full article. I just saw the headline on the Washington.
Can we just roll with it? Can we just act like that's gospel? I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pretend like you just cracked the case, and they got their own problems. Honestly, the fact that Michigan State has had 2 golden parachutes in a 5-week period, where, I mean, obviously it's under kind of shitty circumstances, and the time will tell about the veracity of Brenda Tracy's claims. But it's like, we were kind of going nowhere with Tucker. There's all these rumors up there, some of which I know are true, about, I gotta be careful. He's lawyered up. Some slippage there, let's put it that way. And, Brenda Tracy, it's like she blew him out, and now it's Michigan blowing us off the disgraced headlines. So it's, we do not deserve these mulligans, and we certainly don't deserve them if we blow this Urban Meyer thing. So hopefully they get this across the fence.
Oh, wow. Listen to this. I'm just reading the article because I just logged in. So the firm was analyzing some computer drives maintained and accessed by multiple Michigan coaches, and they turned it over to the NCAA.
I mean, we'll see. What could you imagine, like, if they have some bombshell against them in the same week Michigan State hires Urban Meyer?
Well, that actually would help Michigan State, right? Because it'll take a lot of the focus off of the negative parts of it.
Ooh, that's a good angle too. Get in through the back door, like with those bad headlines. You can kind of like sneak in there, like just sneak them in. Yeah,
swoop them in, and they'll be a lot more focused the other way.
Yeah,
hopefully. I don't know. Well, I'll let you go. I'll let others join in, and it's always great to follow you and get the inside info from you, Justin. So I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, doing the best I can, obviously, with some of the stuff's just like off the record, but there's nothing I don't think, that is off the record that is like a bombshell change in, the fundamental situation. And, I don't think there's anything, there's kind of like interesting coloring in the components of this for sure. And one day, hopefully I can tell that story, and hopefully very soon. Because I mean, if he's hired, and I still got to get sources' permission. You don't want to burn somebody, but I think it'll be an interesting story. The courtship has been fascinating, and the hours spent on the phone and texting that I've done particularly the last week and a half, has been just crazy. And a lot of moving parts and a lot of coalescing going on. And if you go back to my episode with Bernie Fratto, he and I were both, dubious, skeptical, concerned whether they could achieve that level of coalescence. They haven't closed the deal yet. Like I said, Urban could come back and the thing changes, the nature of his demand changes, and someone could get in a huff up there and say, this is too much. I mean, this is still delicate, but the fact that they coalesce to the point where they could get a framework in front of them and say, hey, if you're in, let's get this going. That's more than, I wouldn't say it was more than I thought they could do. I had concerns that they couldn't do it. I'll put it that way. I thought it was a coin flip that they could get there. And the reason I even got to 50%, as high as that, is because I know knew then the enthusiasm for the idea of this happening. And I knew where it was coming from and the weight that those people have and had in this discussion. So credit to Michigan State, because they've done enough to make a real play here. I wouldn't say that's all you can ask for. My position, honestly, unless there's no way to get it done, short of absurd 50 million a year, short of the total absurd, unless there's just no way to get it done, I still think there was a little bit of a failure here, because everybody does have a number. The money people are willing to pay, not an infinite amount, but a significant amount of money to get it done. I just don't think there's a great excuse, if there's any way to do it, not to get it done. Everybody has a number. He wants to coach again. It's not like you're dragging him off the couch against his will because he feels like he has to take the money. He wants to coach again. That whole denial, I can't believe people even take that seriously anymore. Doesn't mean you're always lying. At some point, there are coaches that really don't want to coach anymore. So I'm not saying everybody that has ever said that doesn't mean it. I'm just saying you can't put anything into that either way. My comments, the comments in my replies are always so funny. Like, here's the link to him denying it. Okay, we all know the Saban story with Alabama. Urban said he wasn't going to Ohio State. It's like 6 days later he was. Doesn't mean shit. He wants to coach again. So they got to get it done. All right, so we'll see. I got a couple more. So, has Urban actually been in East Lansing? Yes. I mean, aside from coaching, obviously, but yes. In the context of this negotiation, I absolutely believe that. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. So anybody else wants to call, happy to take your call and kind of wrap there if there's any other outstanding questions. But I will think, I think we're going to be near the end of this within a week. At the beginning of this week, it was either Sunday or Monday. It was like a 72 to 96 hour timeline was the estimate. And that was just a goal. That was the sort of read on it and the pace of it and how long it would take for them to find it, find the finish line or find out that it wasn't going to work. We're already like kind of, at the very end of the high end of that. Again, that was just an estimate. So you're kind of in that any day territory at this point. We'll see where that goes. All right. 517. That's the 517 number. This is the Alan Howard. What's going on?
Hello?
Hey, you're on.
Hey, do you think they'll fix the NIL before Urban gets here?
It's a part of the negotiation. So, yeah, he'll have what he needs. There's no question about that. The reason, and I've defended Steve St. Andre on the SD4L thing, I think the criticism has been absurd. People just don't understand what happened because he's not taking the money and putting it like into his own personal checking account. It's just sitting in the fund and will be reintroduced and redistributed once we know who's actually on the roster. So I get it. There's no question. I thought the rollout was kind of clunky and the guys are finding out right after they land in Iowa. And I'm not defending the execution. I think it was poor. Part of it was, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. Not Steve St. Andre's fault for the deliveries by argument, but the rollout was clunky, but the decision made sense. You don't want to pay some kid that's leaving. We've had a couple guys enter the portal already. They would have been collecting money to leave Michigan State. I don't think that's what you want for your program. So the only reason it was pulled in the first place is because of the firing. Obviously, with a new coach in place and the roster stabilized, it'll be back. But that's been a component of the negotiations and assurances that the support of those programs will be robust. And so, yeah, I think not only do I feel that way, it's essentially a contract variable, an assurance that has to be in place to even get this thing done. And there's an appetite for it. And the thing, if Urban Meyer's hired, all that stuff becomes easy. The problem with SD4L wasn't SD4L. Now, I wasn't saying they were perfect. But this is new for everybody in the whole country. But the problem with them, and I'll give Graham Couch the credit because he made the point in print. They rolled out at the worst possible time, and that's not their fault. It's not their fault the program sucked, and you couldn't just keep not doing it. So they've been program at this point. When they dropped, they've been bad for over 12 months. So you're into your second year. That's a hard time to raise funds. So their statement, and they're saying all the support's been low, and you hire Urban Meyer, that goes away. You don't even have to ask. You don't even have to ask for the money. People just give it to you. Everyone talks about the big donors, and rightfully so. They're the biggest influence here, and they're the ones that, other than me, of course, but they're the biggest ones that kind of got this thing shoved forward and the momentum forward. But the medium donors really matter. I mean, you're over 650,000 alumni of this university. If you get a few of them donating $200 instead of $0 and $500 instead of $200, and I mean, you're talking big, big money over the course of a year, and that being multiplied by several thousand people. So even a little bit of that sort of middle class donor support, like mid-level, I don't mean middle class like economically, but like that sort of mid-level donor, in that kind of $500 to $5,000 range, if they just give a little bit more, and there's several thousand of them, that's the least of their concern. So, do you have anything else?
Yeah. So, do you think I'll be able to spot him over at Reno's?
Hey, whatever he wants, man. Whatever he wants. I think he's. I think he would be actually smart to take this job. I get where I'm biased, but the combination of he can recruit the area in his sleep. So he's familiar with the conference and the regions and the districts, and he knows the landscape. So that's a huge built-in advantage. He coached at Bowling Green and of course obviously Ohio State. So there's that. But the list of schools that'll pay him this amount of money and give him just it's your kingdom, buddy. Like, whatever you need, we got you. There's not many places like I said, Texas. I said earlier, Texas didn't even give Nick Saban that assurance in those. I don't even know how public those conversations. This is like years ago, but there was a dalliance there, and even Texas and Saban had already won multiple national titles at that point. They wouldn't even give him this much autonomy to get him there, and then they had cycling through 4 shitty coaches for 10 years. So Urban has a lot of financial reasons to like the opportunity, has a lot of control, operational incentive. This is Bernie's point, so I'll credit him. This is from his sources, and he's reported it and talked about it on my show. So full credit to him, but Urban does not want the Jacksonville tenure to be the last line on his coaching resume. An associate of Urban, I'm told this is secondhand source, said that it's not a coincidence that he still has Coach Urban Meyer in his Twitter profile, that he's considers himself openly a football coach, wants to coach again. He's a football coach. So that's, I understand a couple of Michigan State people have said, oh, are we going to be dragging this guy out against his will because he feels like he can't turn down the money? The money has to be there, and it's a critical component. It's not going to get done without it, but he's a football coach and he wants to coach again. So appreciate the call. All right, cool. So, well, we can wrap there unless anyone else wants to jump in. So again, that's where the phones work, which is that's awesome. I got to figure out why the mic cut out earlier, but again, 248-923-5996. Happy to take any last calls coming in. I'm just going through, I've gotten a ton of DMs here. So I'm trying to see if is Urban Meyer coming here. You'll have to rewind that, man. We talked about it in great detail. So yeah, if you're a couple people have been messaging me in DMs. I was looking right now about the flag behind me, and it's been in a lot of our graphics. We designed that bad boy. You can message me if you're interested. I can try to figure something out for you. We did like a one batch thing already for some folks, but maybe do one more. So just let me know. Shoot me a message on Twitter, Darko State News. A lot of these questions in the DMs I'm going through, it's a lot of the same stuff that we've already covered. I would just say to those people, rewind and you'll be good. So obviously I'll be on top of this. I feel like I'm about 2 hours behind updates. It seems like it flows down, and I'm usually within a day of where things are at. So I'm going to try to keep people apprised as things change. It seems to be kind of bouncing back and forth between like 30 and 70%. Yesterday, probably our best source on this whole thing was at 70%. And he was kind of into the 60 today, I guess. But yeah, there's people that know what's going on that are above 50. So I think it's at worst a coin flip, and a little bit better. I'm in the 60-65% range, which is wild. Urban Meyer is one of the best coaches ever. If he's not best, he's second best. The only reason Saban's better, and it's a valid point, is the consistency and not taking a break every 5 to 6 years. Urban can't say that. Urban kind of burns hot and then burns out. There's something to be said for Saban up until this year's, struggling a little bit more, but just every year in the playoff, over and over again. Urban burns out. Urban's got a better winning percentage. Urban doesn't have any coaching tenures that were in the, just above 500 range. He doesn't even know what that looks like. Saban can't say that. So I would make the argument, if I'm just, especially in Urban's state in his career and his life and his age, he's not old, but he's not young. I would take Urban Meyer over anybody in the history of college football, because I can't hire Saban right now and let's say I could, and get more than 5 years out of him. 5 years or so is what you're going to get out of Urban Meyer. So if I know I'm not getting you for 20 years regardless, or 10 years, who's better than Urban Meyer? Only Newt Rockne has a higher winning percentage. Newt Rockne was playing a bunch of schools that don't even exist anymore. So Urban Meyer, I think, if you're hiring somebody for 5 years, is the best coach in the history of college football, and one of the best coaches in the history of organized team sports. Get this thing done, please. And I can almost pivot into the Urban Meyer camp now, because I think it's more in his court. But if he comes back to Michigan State and asks for a little bit more, don't do the Mike Ilitch, Max Scherzer thing and get proud. Just get him to the podium. You got to get Urban Meyer there if this is a real possibility. This guy is better than any coach now for a 5-year period. Better winning percentage than Saban. Better track record than Saban for any, 5-year stretch in terms of wins and losses. If you want to put Saban ahead, fine. He's 1A and 1B with Saban. The history of college football for a 5-year span, you cannot do better. You could go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. It does not matter. This guy has been in your city expressing interest in the job. He has been negotiating with you for 10 days-ish as it picks back up. Get it done. If there's a way to get it done, they have to do everything they can. It's not a time to be proud, because you can pride yourself right into a fall, and you think this 5-7 shit last year, or even worse this year, is just going to go away. The challenge in this conference is getting significantly harder, not easier. It's going to get very brutal in that conference very fast. You better have a dog in there. And if I'm going into that fight behind the 8 ball, because that's key. Michigan State is behind the 8 ball. If Michigan State were 6, 7, even 8 wins right now, and let's say they went 7-5 last year and they ended up 8-4 this year. Let's say that had happened. I would still argue they're far behind, because you're nowhere near where you want to be and where you have been before the conference expansion and before the increase in strength of schedule and the competition in recruiting. It's going to shrink and get harder. So 7 and 8 win type shit, even if they were there, I'd be like, oh, fuck, we're in trouble. We're going to go down to 5. If you think this program's immune to some real nasty shit in terms of on-field results, you haven't researched the program. Take out the Antonio's era, and especially that peak. It's a lot of 6-win shit. It's a lot of 5-7, 7-5, shoot up to 8-4. Perlish's best year was like 2 losses and a tie back when college ties were a thing. Go get Urban Meyer. This is a no-brainer. You got to get it done if you can. And you have to commend Michigan State for being in this position where they were open to the idea of it. I already feel, and people could just not believe that this is a thing and that I'm making it up and Comparoni's making it up and Graham Couch is making it. We're all making it up. You can say that, but you're wrong. This is a thing. And I would argue that anyone that poo-pooed this idea, and particularly the idea of it even being potentially viable, it's already been wrong because this has been an ongoing negotiation for a while now. And again, it's picked back up in the last week and a half. So, there's people that said Michigan State would never do that. Their foot's forward. They threw him the ball back. People would say Urban would never take it. He was in East Lansing. He's been negotiating with them. These discussions are going on. So, does he have to sign the contract to, prove those people wrong? I don't know. I guess it's up for you to decide. I don't think it really matters. I do think it's funny, though. We've had a lot of skepticism around this thing as a possibility. I haven't. I've been the biggest proponent, but a lot of people have, and I think those people are already wrong. Michigan State deserves a lot of credit for being open-minded, being aggressive, and they got to get it across the finish line if it's possible. I think it's possible. Everybody's got a number, and you got the people willing to pay for it. So I am a lean towards it happens. Not reporting it has happened because you know why I can't say that? Because Urban Meyer doesn't know if he's taking the job. Michigan State doesn't know. So if they don't know, if Urban Meyer doesn't know if he's going to be the next coach at Michigan State, I can't. There's a family component there. It's part of the sales pitch. You got to recruit more than just the coach, and the children are adult children. So read between the lines on who's an important factor here. And that's relevant. So I wish I could tell you it's getting done for sure. I'm on the right side of 50%. So we'll see what they come up with. And I think we'll have a better idea he's coming or not within a week. Yeah, we'll see. So, all right. Raise the flag, guys. We appreciate you. Go green. And Michigan State basketball is back. I mean, shit. This awesome program coming back tonight, and maybe we hire Urban tomorrow. And I can't wait. If this Urban thing gets done, I can't wait. You guys, the receipts folder is absurd. I'm going to have to pay Elon another $10 to pay for the bandwidth. The receipts folder is the funniest thing. It's every day there's 20 people mocking this idea. Guess what, guys? You're already wrong. The guy was on campus or just off campus, but he was in East Lansing. The guy's in active negotiations with Michigan State right now. So it's a very real possibility. And I want to talk to Jim Comparoni and see what he says, because he said last week he did like the kind of little smidge thing. He seems more open to this idea from his sourcing standpoint, or his sources seem more open to this idea this is going to happen. I'm telling you for a fact it's a real thing. And at this point, it's just attempts to read the tea leaves, and I don't think that answer is out there now. There's things to be worked out and discussions to be had, and we're not even going to those having conversations that haven't even taken place yet. So we'll see, but raise the flag, get this done. Michigan State, I commend you. Got your foot forward on this. You got it. I don't know if it's your best foot yet. If you close the deal, we'll say we put your best foot forward on this. But you put one of the feet forward, and it remains to be seen whether it was your best one. But you got one of them in front. You got the ball in his court, and he didn't say no. That's where this is at as of 3.5 hours ago. So they deserve credit for that, because a lot of people were saying they shouldn't, or it was wrong, and those people were wrong. Those people were wrong. And if you want to make the moral argument, I'll give you all the moral reasons why it makes a lot more sense to win a lot of games. I've weighed it out before. More applications, they go up. Better students, better Spartans, better members of the community. Fundraising, way up. The data's out there. The reports have been done. The correlations between applications rising with the football program at a respective school. Donations rising. And not just earmarked football. I'm talking general fund. Obviously, the football stuff goes up too. I'm talking general fund. pays for resources, mental health resources for the school, better computer labs and the science centers. I mean, it's just depending on what school you're talking about. It's a tide that raises all the ships of the university where it takes place. So you want to make a moral argument because there's some domestic issue that is still unclear what happened, and Urban certainly seems to be at best lacking proactivity in that. I don't know. I'd have to look at that thing again. It didn't look good. But that's not even what people cite. It's usually this girl dancing up on him at the bar. You want to make that argument, you're hurting the school. You're hurting the school. You're not helping it. So you got to think beyond tunnel vision. Urban Meyer comes here. Urban Meyer will win. Why do I say that? Because he doesn't know how to fail in college. He will win. It's just a question of, is it 10 wins or 12? If you think Urban Meyer's going to, this thing is such a mess now. Year one, even with him, where it never takes it, there's no rebuild ever. It may be a 6-7 win season, maybe. Year two, it's going to be 10 wins every year for 3 to 5 years, and then he'll retire. What do you want to do? I want to be in the college football playoff again, and he'll definitely get you in the expansion. So you want to fool around and hire a good guy, and the fundraising for the school plummets. Good luck with that. As I'm rapping, I'm about to hang up and say goodbye, but we'll take one more call. You're in at the buzzer. What's going on?
Hey, last second. Looks like Tom Peroni just put his confidence at less than 5% now. I'm not sure what has happened, but I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Like, is that something you just tweeted, or like where did you see that?
That was on Spartan Mag on 3.
But today?
Yeah, that just happened. So, like, I'm just looking through the threads. Looks like it just happened like a page ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean that's kind of where he was at. I can't remember which video. I think it was a week ago because I remember he vividly made the little smidge finger thing, saying like, tiny bit chance, and that he seems to be back in that basket. It seemed like he was more. I don't know. I'll talk to Jim. I'll shoot him a message. I honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that because like there's like someone the name of like 406 Charles. Like I was reading upon that thread saying like, oh no, it's like a 50 to 60% chance. All of a sudden it went down. I'm not sure what's happening here. It seems like the ball is in Urban's court, but I don't know.
Yeah, the ball's in Urban's court, and the percentage is really just that's in the eye of the beholder. Like there's somebody in the situation, not one of the principal players, but someone who knows the players and is like another person kind of working and covering on this stuff that I'm talking to regularly. And he and I have like the exact, because we're sharing information and stuff, we have the exact same data and the exact, because we're giving each other everything we got, everything I have and vice versa. And we have different numbers. You know, he's at 35-40 and we have the exact same information.
Yeah, because you know that comp's 14% means like a 50% chance.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak for comp. I don't know. I will say, you know, he was really low on it at a time where it was, I have to look at what the date was, either right before negotiations picked back up or like early on while they were going on, neither of which would jive with this idea that, oh, there's a smidge of a chance if they're in active negotiations or about to start them, restart them. So I don't know. And I'll have to reach out to him. I'm not sure. I know there is a lot of variance, but 5%, that's by far the lowest I've heard of anybody involved in this. And maybe something happened in the last 3 hours. That's totally possible.
Do you still think it's about like 50%, 60% chance?
Yeah, I'm at around 60. Yeah, I said earlier in the show, I'm at about 60. And I'm kind of riding with the person I think is most plugged in on this that is in these conversations. I'm kind of mirroring where he goes. I think we have a similar read on it. You know, it was closer to 70%. I said it was yesterday, the day before. We were both at 70, and you know, I've been above, you know, 30 pretty much the whole time. No, I just think I think there's enough, you know, 30 or above the whole time. I think there's enough there. I think it's important to keep pushing for it if you want it though, because Urban he's got a little bit of an ego on him. And I think that's sort of natural when you're Urban Meyer and someone of his stature, which that's a very short list. So I think he can grind on you, and it's like, come on, I think it'd be very easy to get frustrated and wash your hands and say we're moving on when you are closer than you think to getting it done. That's my take on it. I know there's some people that agree with me that are around this, that it's important that Michigan State keep going hard, and it's worth it to lose an extra week in that search or whatever, or your focus search, to go all out balls to the wall for the guy. I mean, there's very few people I would say, hey, search be damned, let's stay on this guy as long as humanly possible. This is one of those very few guys. You don't fuck around with this. So they
no, yeah, you don't want to get like Candle or anything.
Yeah. Good luck throwing Candle into this new conference. Have fun with that. I mean, it's
yep.
All right,
I appreciate the call, man.
You bet. All right, so we'll wrap there. All right, Fireside chat, guys. Appreciate you. A lot of messages. I might get bombed with DMs now. People asking stuff. I got to wrap it. I'll try to get to you guys privately. A lot of it's just repetitive and redundant anyway. But again, I do commend Michigan State for getting involved in this. Keep pushing. Keep going. Let's go. Sell out hard. This is not a normal search. This is not a guy that you get frustrated. The prettiest girl can play hard to get. The prettiest girl can make you work really hard. And this, in coaching parlance, this is whomever your favorite actress is. To me, this is Hillary Burton. Yeah, this is Hillary Burton. For you, it might be Margot Robbie or Jennifer Love Hewitt in 1998. Whomever your number one is, that's who you're talking about. Pretty girl gets to play hard to get. That's the reality. You can be upset about that, but Urban Meyer's the prettiest girl at the ball. So don't get frustrated. It's going to be a pain in the ass to get that thing done. It's going to be much harder. Mel Tucker, that came together in a couple of days. Even the framework of Fickle came together very quickly, and then it fell apart. You can't lose sight of what you're chasing and the nature of what you're chasing in the negotiation, because Urban Meyer was never, for anybody, it's not a Michigan State thing, Urban Meyer was never going to make any negotiation easy, any pursuit of him easy. It's part ego, it's part genuine, family component there that has to be navigated. This was never going to get done in 5 days. It was never going to get done over a phone call or over a breakfast sandwich. So there is some concern with not the final decision makers, but with people of influence, that the decision makers are going to become frustrated by this. Just isn't happening. Let's get out of here and move on. You better be sure that thing is dead and that you did everything possible to keep it alive, because that guy wants to coach again. And he's been hearing you out and has not turned you down. So keep pushing. Now is not the time to be prideful. You're talking about the best or second best coach in the history of the sport. Get it done. Spiro Avenue, fun fireside. This was fun. We're getting good with the phones here too. We'll see you. Raise the flag. Get it done. Urban Meyer, Michigan State. Appreciate you. You got the foot forward. Put the best foot forward. Get it done. Raise the flag.